It's Friday the 13th, 2024. 2024. Gosh, how did we get here? Do we start calling it the 20s now? I think so. Well, hello. And yes, it's been a while since I've done a video. Working full time now, don't have time, but I've been jotting a few things down. um, And I feel like the news last night, was that Putin said that if Europe or America supply Ukraine with long-range weapons, that's effectively joining the war against Russia, and then, we're upscaling. I think when Yeshua, Jesus, said that in the end times, what will it be like in the end times? There'll be wars and rumors of wars. I think that's what that is telling us, is that there's basically just going to be always wars. And if you look back in history, we go, a decade at most, really, without war anywhere. So, there's always going to be wars going on, or rumors of wars. And hopefully, if Trump wins, war can be averted. Had the Trump and Kamala debate a couple of nights ago. When was that? Tuesday night. Today's Friday. And I actually watched the whole thing. There's no way Kamala won. I mean, if you analyze it, there's no way she won. But I get why people are kind of saying that, they're not saying she won outright, but they're kind of saying she might have got the edge on him. And that is, if you were watching it, when Trump was talking, Kamala was pulling these facial expressions, and they were quite effective. You were drawn to look at her facial expression, and if you did that, then you kind of perhaps weren't listening to what Trump said. I think they should do another debate now that Trump has an idea of what he's up against. He can actually prepare, and perhaps if he's not spending time in court, he could find a way to debate with her. But she was, if you took actually the content of what she said, she was kind of saying, yeah, we should all get along together, but just so much, so much sort of just, well, is it hate speech towards Trump? Effectively, just calling him, in a sense, not calling him names per se, but just slagging him off right in front of his face. Um, you know, it's quite hypocritical to sit there saying, I'm going to bring everyone together, there's more that unites us than opposes us, and then just slag off the guy to her right. But it was quite, well, I think upon content, Kamala, it reminds me of Obama, when Obama, and the hope we had when Obama got in, well, the hope I had, it felt, well, it was a whole thing about hope. But it was literally all bullshit. By the end of Obama's term, there was a caliphate in the Middle East. It was absolute appalling 8-year period where we just went down, down, down. And that's what I felt when I was watching it, is that, this is just all lies, absolute rubbish. She's a complete and utter puppet. She won't be making any of the decisions. And just a barefaced liar. And yeah. Well, anyway, I wasn't even planning to talk about that, but that's where we are today. And I've got a day off work, so I can make a video. And I thought it's probably about time, because I do feel that we are now heading towards this fifth trumpet, we're going to start feeling the effects of it, and I think we can already see some of the things that are going to be our challenges that we're going to have to face. But before we go on to that, I'd like to talk about Atlantis a little bit and what we think of as Atlantis and stuff. So let me just tell you what I think of it. So Atlantis was in the previous, let's call it an epoch, right? So our civilization that we've got today is built up from the Sumerians, what they had, writing, trade, and all of that, yeah, and building. And we've taken that and we've developed it. So, but Atlantis was before that. So Atlantis was in a previous epoch, which got broken down, got destroyed, and that's why we started again. But we started off with a bit of knowledge from the Sumerians, because what they had, they'd taken from the previous epoch. So we think of Atlantis as, well, it's a city, it's supposed to be a city, but in this time then, in this epoch, I think Atlantis was what happened in a sense. Like, if the Nazis had won, that's how Atlantis became Atlantis. At some point in their history, they had a war, they had a bunch of Nazis, and the Nazis won. And what you had then was a very, very, very strong civilization with a very, very strong nation, say, that is the leader of the empire, and it stayed until the Great Flood, which wiped them out. So I don't know. That's an interesting sort of viewpoint on it. If we often think, what would it have been like if the Nazis had won? We would have had this sort of very, very powerful nation, untouchable, basically, covering the whole earth, and nothing would have been able to knock them off their pedestal. So if we look back to Atlantis, maybe with sort of sparkly eyes, and think it was a wonderful time and place. Well, maybe it was for the people at the top, but I suspect it wasn't nice for most. And there is evidence that there was attempts of war. If you think about some of the destroyed fortresses that are in South America, they're so well made, advanced technology, yet something's smashed them to bits. So anyway, I didn't want to dwell on that too much. Just to say that that's fact in my opinion, and we're facing the same thing again come 2090 to 2128, when we'll be starting again. And I think it's quite a nice thought that we'll get to do it all again and build up from effectively cavemen with very little technology. Right, I won't do that yet. A question that often comes up, I believe in reincarnation and past lives, and then you think, well, how come I can't remember it? So I think the way it's done is that your heart remembers everything, and so all the experiences, all the learning, all the emotional experience is retained, and what isn't retained is the actual physical memories although they are there somewhere, but you don't bring them into this life because, well, that'd be confusing in a way. But you could see something that reminded you of your previous life, and you wouldn't get a memory about it, one you can see perhaps, um, but you would get a feeling. So when I watched the documentary of Che Guevara's life, and I was just having all these emotional reactions to it, way beyond anything I've ever felt watching any other sort of historical documentary, it was really affecting me. And, so I was then, I believe, having the emotional memories. So the advantage of past lives is that you have all this experience, that you've done things before, so you skills, even playing musical instruments and things like that, you can retain, but without the actual. And it would just be confusing, wouldn't it, if you could have all these memories of, you'd had a different mother and father then, different siblings, so that would be coming into your mind. So I think, it'd be accessible, and maybe at a very young age you can, and it'll be accessible afterwards if we're interested. So, but yeah, the reason that it's not useless is the fact that we have the emotional memories and experience. That was that. Right. Let's. I don't know. Like, what's different about this day and age? What's kind of unique about it? I think partly it's we've had 50 years or so of women working more and more. So not being in the home, but being at work. And this has had quite a ripple effects throughout society in many, many ways. And when we think about some of the problems we've got in society, isn't this quite a big part of that? Um, so what are we going to do about it? And nothing seems to be the answer. And perhaps there really isn't anything we can do now. It's too late. We can't really go back. I mean, I thought about, if what about if we went all the other way, and only women worked and men stayed at home, and as soon as the baby was born, or 3 months, women would have some maternity leave, say, for 3 or 4 months, and then the men would take over. What would that actually be like? And then imagine a world of work where only women worked. I mean, I can imagine some very catty situations, and pardon me if that offends anyone using the word catty. It's just a description of how women can get when they're pissed off. Um, I think it'd be a disaster. And if we went back I mean, what would all the men be doing at home, right? Would be fixing motorbikes in the kitchen and having fun with the kids. You bet the dads would be just having a lot more fun with the kids. And would we be really so afraid of the woman coming home and having a go at us when you're a man? And like, you know, but then again, we don't want to go back either. So I don't know what the answer is. I think I have actually said this before, but I actually think segregated working. I think there are jobs for women and jobs for men. And that way we could get the best. Instead of trying to say, oh, women can do everything as good as men or better. That's just not true. And I think we can all accept that. So why don't we actually just accept, that mechanics and problem solvers, builders, you know, physical jobs should be men's jobs. And women are good at marketing and sales and presentations. And I was thinking about this, like men go out to work. They don't really care about work surroundings. It could be, you don't want it to be filthy, but you know what I mean? It doesn't have to look nice or be homely. But women like to women in a sense, they are the home. So wherever they are is the home. So when you got women working in an office, it's a homely place. It's you walk in there and it feels homely. It's nice. They bring the home with them basically. So we're very different, really. We are very different, and I think that is the answer. The answer is to look at those differences and say, well, look, yes, you have the odd exceptions, but generally, this work is suited for men, and this work is suited for women. And just, that's how we can perhaps get the best out of things. So yeah, I mean, we got a problem with schools and stuff. So, well, anyway, blah blah blah. Yeah. Um. Okay. I just right before I go on to like what I see the fifth trumpet stuff coming. Ukraine was to weaken Russia. That's my conclusion, and I haven't really worked it out you know what has been our intention in provoking this conflict, and I think now I see it is part of their long-term plan to ruin Russia because they're afraid of the potential power of a country that big with so much resources, but also population that is, mostly blue-eyed. And if they had sort of gone after Russia and left Ukraine alone in 2014 with its pro-Russian leader, Ukraine would have probably sided with Russia because most of the people there are Russians. They even still now consider themselves Russians when they won't surrender. We're Russian. We don't surrender. So by doing this, by getting in the coup into Ukraine and gradually working on this, this dividing the two nations against each other, they've succeeded in weakening those peoples. They obviously don't give a shit about Ukrainians. They've given them second-rate weaponry, and shitloads of them have died. Encouraged them to fight this war. After all that stuff had been said about what brave nation they are and everything, if they wanted to back down, then they would have seemed cowardly, wouldn't they? After being bigged up. There's extremely cruel politics that have been played out here, and it's got them the desired results. Loads of blue-eyed fighting age men have died in that area. Now, I don't know how many Russians have lost, what the true figures are, but now they could, perhaps provoke more of an attack and not be so afraid of an incursion of soldiers coming into Europe. This is their game. And the Americans' technology must be amazing now. I mean, they can fake UFOs, so they can make a plane disappear. Did you see the Redacted did a thing on MH370, and they've got video footage from a pair of satellites and a drone, same time, different angles, showing this plane veering off, flying. There's a fire. There's something on fire in the cabin, some lithium batteries, and then there are these orbs flying around it for about 20 seconds or something, and then these 3 orbs coming close to the plane, and it just disappears. Now that makes me think, not that it blew up or imploded, as they said, but magically appeared somewhere else, some sort of transportation. Yeah. Anyway, that wasn't really on my list. Right, so 5th trumpet coming up. Now this might seem a bit weird, but I've noticed my bogeys been getting stickier. Not over a period, I reckon, of a decade or so. Now, what's that all about? It seems stupid, but honestly, I'm not being stupid. This is something. Also, I'm finding it more difficult to clear the phlegm when I cough, right? I'm a smoker. In the morning, I have a drag on a fag, and I cough, and I cough. The phlegm, don't know what I do with it, and it clears the lungs, right? Now, and then I feel I can breathe, no problem, right? This has been getting harder to do as well. And I'm thinking, is this something that they're doing on purpose, or is it just a byproduct of pollution, or byproduct of chemtrails? And if it was chemtrails, well then they'd be on purpose, right? Right, sounds very far-fetched, and here I am, a smoker, complaining that it's harder to cough my phlegm up. But remember, it's also harder to pick my nose, because these bogeys, they can be so sticky. So sticky. Has anybody else noticed stickier bogeys? I think my son agreed with me. Stickier phlegm. So let's say if I didn't smoke, and I wasn't coughing, I don't think that's a good thing. Because we do have all this pollution in the air, I actually think now, in this time period, it's actually good to cough once or twice a day, clear that phlegm. Or more, to be honest, it's probably after every time I've had a fag or something, I'll have a little cough, and it will clear the phlegm. I think it's a good thing, because, that I've always thought this about smoking and pollution. If I'm smoking and I've got this layer of tar down my throat and on my lungs, and then I'm breathing in pollution and particles, aren't they going to get stuck to that tar? And then I cough, clear the phlegm, and it's gone. Whereas if I didn't smoke, those particles and pollution would be going into my lungs, and maybe you don't get a chance to cough them up. Maybe it goes into the blood. I don't know how deep. But anyway, I do smoke, so I can't sort of talk for non-smokers. We'll have to find one, see what they think. But this relates to the next thing that I'm seeing. I mean, we've really had a lack of insects this year. Last year too, even more so this year. But what I've noticed is smaller insects, that there's more smaller ones. Without the bigger ones, perhaps the smaller ones can thrive. And yesterday, on my rounds, going up this garden, they've got mud up the side, and I could see all these black things flying. Sometimes it's flies on ivy, you can get swarms of flies on ivy. But these were little bees, tiny little bees, and there were loads of them, about 50 to 100. Now, a few weeks ago, I accidentally stood on this, what was it, group of little bees. There was only a couple of them there, though, and I got stung by them. And got away, didn't get, stung too much. But I was thinking, with these 50 to 100 of them, if I'd stood on one, because they were flying about everywhere, and then, get a swarm of 50 stinging you, you could be dead. And then the next garden, it was the same. They had another one, and I think there were 3 gardens. And I could see the hole where they were coming more in and out of. There were shitloads. Now, has this got something to do with the air? I don't know. I mean, we know insects do breathe. So if things are getting stickier, I don't know if the bigger ones are struggling more. Maybe it means there's less oxygen in the air or something. They can't maintain what they could before. These things are struggling to balance. And I've seen barely any wasps this year at all, but the little ones I have seen quite, more than I'd usually see the little ones. But maybe that's because there's nothing to look at, so you notice anything. But here's what I'm thinking, that so the 5th trumpet mentions a plague of locusts that look like galloping horses or something like that. So I'm just thinking it's the change in the balance of the nature. Some of these insects are dying off. It's leaving gaps where there's potential for another type of insect, an insect we haven't seen yet, potentially. And if you read the description of the thing in the 5th trumpet, it sounds pretty nasty. It sounds pretty bad. So I think that might be what we're going to see. Because if you think it's difficult, isn't it, to fight against something very small, and if there's plagues of them, if they can get in the house, if they get in the car, there'll be no escape. We'll go around wearing nets. Nets with incredibly small holes. Anyway, I don't know. Well, I probably had more to say, but so I don't usually use lists. There we go. I did intend to play a song on the guitar, which I haven't learned properly. Maybe never will be able to. But might sing anyway. Yeah. Maybe keep this short and entertaining, eh? Short and entertaining. Reminder. Don't leave me in all this pain. Don't leave me out in the rain. Come back and bring back the smile and the side of my life. Don't leave me now. I need you in my life. Come back and hold my heart. Break my heart. Say you love me again. I don't see that beside of my dead and out of my life and it's out of my head. I left me tears. I've cried so many nights. Oh, break my heart. At least I got a bit out. Oh yeah, AJ Miller's got a ton of videos, new ones, uploaded like a couple of days after they were recorded. I've only watched a bit of the first one because the sound quality is pretty poor. I get the feeling he's not saying anything new. These are on a channel called Exposure. It's hard to find, but they are there. Yep, that'll do. Ciao for now.